Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that most people don't want to hear. Your words are cheap. They cost nothing. It's easy to talk about what you're going to do. It's easy to post your vision on Instagram, to declare your next move, to let everyone know how big you're dreaming. But here's the truth. Talking is not building. Talking is not executing. Talking is not leading. And if you want to be someone who actually builds something meaningful, you need to learn to move in silence. This world has trained us to believe that everything needs to be shared, that visibility equals validation, that the more noise we make, the more credibility we have, but that's not leadership. That's insecurity dressed up as ambition. Because real leaders, real executors, real doers, they're not out here broadcasting every move they make. They're not looking for applause while they're still in the middle of building, their heads down. Focused, moving with clarity, moving with intention, and most importantly, moving without the need for external affirmation. If you have to talk about your goals constantly in order to stay committed to them, you haven't built the internal discipline yet. You're still relying on noise instead of self-trust. And here's what I know, the bigger the vision, the quieter the preparation, because big goals don't need big announcements. They need big action in silence. Behind the scenes, in the unglamorous, unseen moments when no one's clapping and no one's watching. When you move in silence, you conserve energy. You channel that energy into execution, not into convincing people that you're legit. You don't need to defend your ambition. You don't need to explain your plan. You don't need to justify why you're going hard this year, why you're not showing up to every social event, why you're setting boundaries, why you're saying no to distractions. You don't owe anyone an explanation, because the version of you that's building something extraordinary does not have time to manage other people's perceptions. And let's be real, when you share your moves too early, you open the door to opinions that can derail your focus. Most people aren't qualified to give you feedback on your vision. They'll project their fears, their limits, their mediocrity onto your future. They'll say, that's too risky, that's unrealistic. Why don't you play it safe? And if you're not grounded, that noise will start to sound like truth. That's why silence is powerful. It's protective. It allows your ideas to take shape without interruption, without dilution, without permission. You don't need everyone to believe in you right now. You need you to believe in you. You need to be so focused, so clear, so committed that whether or not anyone sees your progress, you keep going. That's the real CEO energy. That's the real leadership mindset. You don't wait for the world to validate your direction. You validate it with your consistency, with your resilience, with your output. Look, I'm not telling you to isolate. I'm telling you to discern. Share your vision with people who earn the right to hear it. Mentors, coaches, strategic partners who pour into your growth. But don't cast your pearls to people who aren't building anything themselves. They won't get it, and they shouldn't, because your vision is not meant to be understood. It's meant to be built in silence, with strategy, with strength, and when it's ready, when you've put in the reps. When the foundation is solid and the momentum is real, that's when you let the results speak. That's when the launch happens, the deal closes, the brand explodes, the impact lands, and people will say, wow, when did that happen? But they won't see the months or years you spent in the trenches. They won't see the discipline, the late nights, the early mornings, the silent sacrifices. But that's okay, because you weren't doing it for applause. You were doing it for mastery, for mission, for legacy. So stop broadcasting and start building. Stop explaining and start executing. The people who matter will notice when it's time. Until then, protect the process, respect the silence, trust the work, and let your results be the loudest thing about you. That's how leaders move. That's how winners move. That's how you move when you move like a CEO. Execution will always speak louder than announcement. The temptation to share what you're working on, to broadcast your big ideas, to tell the world what you're asterisk about asterisk to do it strong. It feels good. It gives you a dopamine hit. People applaud your ambition. They validate your dream. And for a moment, it feels like you're already halfway there. But here's the truth. Announcing your plans doesn't make them real. Posting about your goals doesn't build discipline. Sharing your vision doesn't make you a leader. Execution does. And the people who actually change the game, the ones who disrupt industries, scale companies, and lead movements. They aren't spending all their energy talking about what they're going to do. They're too busy doing it. There's a difference between momentum and motion. You can feel like you're moving just because you're making noise. You can feel productive because you're brainstorming, networking, and planning out loud. But none of that matters without follow through, and too often, people get caught in the illusion of progress. They substitute words for action. They confuse inspiration with implementation, and they wonder why they don't see results. But success doesn't come from being visible. It comes from being consistent. It comes from the days when you show up and work without anyone watching, when you're not posting, when you're not talking, when you're just executing. People who execute at the highest level don't need to tell the world they're coming. They just show up with results. That's real power, and that power is built in private. It's built in the early mornings, the quiet evenings, the weekends when you could be relaxing but you're refining your craft, building your business, mastering your process. It's built in the moments no one celebrates, no one sees, and no one claps for, because those are the moments that actually move the needle. If you only feel motivated when you're being seen or celebrated, you'll never sustain momentum. You'll stay dependent on external validation, and you'll never get to the level where your work asterisk speaks for itself asterisk. That's the goal, to be so excellent, so consistent, so undeniable that you don't need to convince anyone. Your results will do it for you, your brand will reflect it, your growth will confirm it. That doesn't mean you hide forever. It means you build the foundation before you broadcast the vision. You put in the reps before you ask for recognition. You prove your discipline to asterisk yourself asterisk before you expect anyone else to buy into it, because leadership isn't about inspiring people with potential, it's about showing them what's possible through execution. Talking about what you're going to do might make you feel productive in the moment, but it often becomes a trap. The more you talk, the more pressure you feel to deliver, and instead of that pressure-fueling action, it creates anxiety. You start worrying about what people will think if you don't follow through. You become more focused on perception than performance, and that pulls your energy away from where it needs to be on the work. On the systems, on the decisions, on the discipline. That's what creates outcomes. There's also a psychological cost to constant announcing. Studies have shown that when you tell people your goals, your brain gets a premature sense of accomplishment. It tricks you into feeling like you've already achieved something, simply because you stated your intention, but intentions are not results. Announcements don't lead to income. Likes and shares don't build legacy. Only execution does, and the fewer people you try to impress, the more freedom you have to focus fully on what matters. Execution is not glamorous, it's repetitive, it's boring sometimes, it's doing the same high-leverage activities over and over, even when no one is clapping. It's working the process long after the initial excitement wears off. That's where most people quit. They chase novelty. They want every day to feel exciting, but CEOs don't need excitement to stay engaged. They need impact. They need forward movement. They understand that mastery is earned in the monotony, that greatness is found in the details. That the people who get the farthest are usually the ones who were willing to be the most consistent when it mattered least to everyone else, but most to themselves. When you execute relentlessly and quietly, you build internal trust. You no longer need the world to believe in your plan because you believe in it. You've shown up, you've done the work, you've honored the commitments no one else even knew you made. That creates confidence that cannot be faked. Confidence that isn't dependent on how many people cheer for you. That's the confidence that lasts, that scales, that transforms your identity from someone who starts things to someone who finishes them. So if you're dreaming big, good, keep dreaming, but more importantly, start building. Stop over-explaining your goals and start over-delivering on your promises. Keep your vision close. Protect your energy. Say less, do more. Let your work speak for you. Let your consistency create the credibility. Let your progress tell the story. That's what execution does. It introduces you before you ever walk in the room. It validates your leadership without you having to say a word. Execution over announcement, every single time. Oversharing your plans may feel like strategy, but it's often a silent sabotage. When we talk too much about what we're working on, we leak energy. We give away momentum. We exchange execution for validation. It happens in small moments, when we casually drop that we're starting a business, when we share that we're pivoting our brand, when we post about our intentions to go all in on something new. And it feels good. It feels like movement. But what's really happening is that we're spending the energy we need to build on trying to be seen starting. And that energy leak is costly because it creates a false sense of accomplishment that delays the real work. The middle class mindset rewards external approval. It trains us to believe that if people notice our ambition, that somehow validates it. So we talk about our ideas before they're fully formed. We share our goals with people who haven't earned the right to hear them. We look for reactions before we've created results. But what we don't realize is that every time we tell someone our plan, especially someone who doesn't understand the mission, we're opening a door for doubt. And doubt can be contagious. A single question, a small comment, a sideways look can derail clarity that took weeks or months to build. Your energy is your most valuable resource. It fuels your focus, your creativity, your resilience. And when you constantly share what you're working on, you disperse that energy in 10 different directions. You start managing expectations instead of managing outcomes. You get distracted by conversations instead of staying anchored in execution. You start thinking more about how your work will be perceived than about the integrity of the work itself. And that's where momentum dies, not in a dramatic crash, but in a slow, subtle diffusion of your own power. There's also a psychological shift that happens when you overshare. The moment you talk about your plan, your brain gets a hit of dopamine. It feels like progress, but nothing's actually changed. The business isn't built. The systems aren't running, the habits aren't locked in. You've only imagined the future and borrowed feelings from success that hasn't been earned yet. That illusion is dangerous. Because it satisfies your emotional need for movement without requiring you to do the uncomfortable, quiet work of actual transformation. You stop building, you start explaining, and explanations don't scale businesses. Actions do. High performers understand that clarity grows in silence. Focus is protected in privacy. Your vision needs time and space to take root, and when you're constantly talking about it, you're not giving it the chance to mature. Think of your goal like a seed. If you dig it up every few days to show it to people, it won't grow. You have to leave it underground, in the dark, in the quiet, nourishing it, tending to it, protecting it, until it breaks through on its own. That's what real leadership looks like, building in private, growing in silence, trusting the process enough that you don't need constant applause along the way. There's also something powerful about letting your work introduce you. When you move in silence, people don't see you coming. They're not tracking your progress or questioning your steps. And that gives you the room to fail quietly, to iterate without judgment, to pivot without explanation. You get to lead from a place of strength instead of reaction. You show up with results, not rehearsed stories. You don't need to persuade anyone to believe in you because your performance makes the argument for you. That's the difference between trying to look successful and actually being successful. One depends on perception, the other is built on proof. The world doesn't need more people talking about what they're going to do. It needs more people doing the things they said they would do, long after the mood to announce it has passed. That's the standard. That's the discipline. When you resist the urge to overshare, you reclaim your power. You learn to validate yourself. You learn to be led by mission, not reaction. You build deeper confidence, because it's built on consistency, not comments. You become someone who doesn't just start things, but someone who finishes them. Someone who doesn't just dream, but delivers. And let's be clear, this doesn't mean you isolate yourself. It means you get intentional. You share your vision with people who are aligned, people who can support it, people who have the capacity to elevate you, not drain you. You choose mentors over audiences, strategy over spectacle, impact over impression. You learn that the most important work often happens when no one is watching, and that the strongest version of you doesn't need the world to know what you're building until it's already built. The next time you feel the urge to share your next big move, pause. Ask yourself, am I saying this because it needs to be said, or because I want to feel seen? Am I speaking from power or from insecurity? Will this fuel my momentum or dilute it? Because every word has weight, and the people who rise the highest are the ones who protect their energy like it's sacred, because it is. That's what it means to move in silence. That's what it means to operate like a CEO. You speak through your actions, you lead through your execution, and you let the world find out asterisk after asterisk you've already built what you came to build. When you choose to work quietly, when you stop broadcasting your every move, you start to build something far more valuable than attention. You start to build trust in yourself. Internal confidence isn't given, it's earned. Not through praise, not through followers, not through validation from others, but through consistent, intentional action that no one else sees. Silence gives you the space to develop that trust. When no one is watching, there are no expectations to manage, no applause to chase. It's just you, your discipline, and the work. And that's where real confidence is forged. Most people chase external confidence. They think if they can get enough likes, enough people telling them they are on the right track, then they'll believe it themselves. But that's a fragile kind of confidence. It fades the second people stop clapping. It disappears when the feedback stops. It's conditional, it's reactive, and it doesn't hold up under pressure. Internal confidence is different. It's grounded, it's quiet, it doesn't need to be seen or recognized to exist. It comes from knowing that you've shown up for yourself repeatedly, even when no one was keeping score. It's the result of doing hard things consistently and privately. Moving in silence forces you to confront yourself. Without the distraction of external validation, you're left with your own standards. Are you keeping your promises to yourself? Are you showing up when you said you would? Are you doing the work or just talking about doing the work? These are the questions that create growth. When you move in silence, there's no performance, there's just execution. And when your identity starts to align with execution, your confidence becomes unshakable, not because of what others see, but because of what asterisk you asterisk know. The process of building something meaningful, whether it's a business, a body, a mindset, requires patience and presence. You can't rush it. You can't skip steps. And when you're constantly sharing every milestone, every idea, every pivot, you disrupt your own process. You start to shape your decisions around how they'll be perceived instead of how effective they are. You begin to rely on reactions to gauge progress, and that creates noise, internally and externally. Silence, on the other hand, invites clarity. It gives you space to listen to yourself, to reflect, to discern. To separate your own voice from the voices of everyone watching. That's where real alignment happens. Confidence is built when you stop needing evidence from the outside world, when you stop waiting for someone to give you permission to feel powerful, when you stop asking for opinions on goals you already know are right for you. And that happens when you learn to move through the world without needing to be noticed. It happens when you can trust yourself to follow through quietly, consistently, relentlessly. People often assume that confidence looks loud, that it's about taking up space, commanding attention, being the most vocal person in the room, but true confidence doesn't need a stage, it doesn't need to convince anyone. It doesn't come from how many people are watching, it comes from what you've built when no one was. It's not about what you say you'll do, it's about what you've already done, quietly, day after day. That's the kind of confidence that doesn't waver, even when things get hard. Because it's not dependent on circumstances. It's rooted in self-trust. There's also power in not revealing your moves too early. When you're silent, you're unpredictable, and when you're unpredictable, you're protected. You can pivot without explanation. You can change direction without needing to justify it. You can fail without the weight of public perception. You give yourself the freedom to evolve in real time without being locked into a version of yourself you announced prematurely. And that freedom allows you to focus on what matters most, actual growth, not the performance of growth. We live in a culture that rewards sharing over doing. We've been taught that visibility equals value. But leadership isn't built on visibility. It's built on decisions, on patterns, on who you become when no one's watching. And if you can become someone who works in silence, someone who shows up without a spotlight, someone who leads without needing to be seen, then you become someone who doesn't just have confidence, but someone who is confident. When you finally do show up, when the results are visible, when the outcomes are undeniable, it won't be because you talked about it. It'll be because you lived it, because you stayed focused, because you honored the process. Because you trusted yourself more than you needed to be noticed. And that kind of presence, that kind of leadership, it's magnetic. It commands attention not through volume, but through substance. People listen not because you're loud, but because you're credible. Because you've earned it. Moving in silence is not about hiding. It's about owning your journey so fully that you don't need an audience to prove your worth. It's about building a relationship with yourself so strong that external feedback becomes a bonus, not a necessity. It's about understanding that the most powerful people in any room are usually the ones who aren't trying to prove anything. They've already proven it to themselves, and now they lead, speak, and build from that place. Quiet, certain, unstoppable, saying less gives you space to do more. In a world where everyone is speaking, posting, announcing, explaining, and selling, the ones who are truly making moves are often the quietest in the room. They're not wasting their breath on validation. They're not explaining their every pivot or narrating their hustle. They are using their time, energy, and voice for what matters, action. When you learn to say less, you take back your power. You stop leaking energy through unnecessary conversations. You stop giving people access to your vision who haven't earned the right to influence it. You start pouring everything you've got into building, refining, delivering, and leading by example instead of commentary. The habit of constantly talking about our plans often comes from insecurity. We speak about the thing we're doing because we're not sure if we're capable of actually doing it, so we compensate. We try to make it real through words instead of action. We try to get people to believe in us before we've even committed fully ourselves, and in doing that, we dilute the intensity we need for execution. Saying less requires confidence. Not the loud, performative kind, but the quiet, grounded kind, the kind that comes from knowing who you are, where you're going, and what it takes to get there. It's the kind of confidence that doesn't need to be proven because it's built on consistency, not conversation. People who are constantly explaining themselves are often people who haven't decided what they actually want. They're still searching for permission, feedback, or clarity. But when you really decide, when your mission is locked in and your path is clear, you stop needing to talk about it. You're too focused, too committed, too locked in on the work to be explaining every move. You understand that your results will do the talking. That time will reveal the truth. That saying less now allows you to say more later, because what you'll have to say will be backed by results, not speculation. Saying less also forces you to be more intentional with your words when you speak. Your communication becomes more strategic. You stop filling space with noise and start delivering messages that carry weight. That's what strong leadership sounds like: clear, intentional, and purposeful. It's not about dominating the conversation. It's about directing it. And the best leaders know when to speak, how to speak, and, more importantly, when to let their actions speak for them. One of the biggest advantages of saying less is that it allows you to operate without interference. When fewer people know what you're doing, fewer people have opinions about how you should be doing it, and that means you get to build your process, your habits, and your vision without the distraction of outside noise. You don't have to defend your choices. You don't have to respond to misunderstandings. You don't have to justify your ambition. You just do the work, you move forward, you get better, quietly, consistently, relentlessly. You also protect your energy when you say less. Every conversation, every explanation, every back and forth takes a piece of your focus, and when you're building something meaningful, especially something from scratch, you need every ounce of that focus. You can't afford to be drained by defending yourself to people who don't see the full picture. You can't waste time trying to educate people on your vision when that time could be spent building it. Saying less helps you conserve your creative energy so you can spend it where it counts, on execution. This doesn't mean you isolate yourself or never communicate. It means you become selective. You choose when and where to speak. You speak with purpose, not just out of habit. You share with people who are aligned, who are rooting for you, who challenge you in ways that sharpen you, not people who drain your belief. You move in circles where your silence is understood as focus, not weakness. Where your results are watched, not your words, and over time, the contrast becomes clear. While others are still talking about what they're going to do, you're already living it. Saying less also gives you the opportunity to surprise people. When you don't reveal every step, every idea, every intention, you create space for quiet progress and bold results. You give yourself permission to evolve without public commentary. You avoid getting boxed into a version of yourself that you announced before you really knew what was coming. You leave room to pivot, to grow, to fail and recover without judgment. You earn the power of the unexpected. You show up with more than people anticipated because you didn't waste energy trying to convince them. You let the outcome speak for itself. In the end, saying less isn't about being secretive. It's about being intentional. It's about respecting the weight of your words and choosing to let your work carry the story. It's about trusting yourself so fully that you don't need to explain every move. It's about leading with clarity, not noise. It's the discipline to focus, to build, and to protect what you're creating until it's strong enough to stand on its own. That's what real leadership looks like, not in endless talk, but in relentless action, not in telling everyone what's next, but in showing them, through results they can't ignore, real growth thrives in privacy. In the silence where distractions are cut out, expectations are muted, and there's no audience to perform for, only yourself, your vision, and the next step forward. It's in that space that transformation happens because you stop measuring progress through external lenses. You stop comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. You begin to measure growth not by applause or approval, but by how deeply you're evolving. You start to realize that privacy isn't hiding, it's protecting. It's choosing to guard your process with intention, not because you're afraid to share, but because what you're building is too valuable to be exposed to premature judgment. When you grow in private, you allow yourself the room to be messy, to experiment, to make mistakes without fear of perception. You're not worried about who's watching or what they're thinking. You're focused on refining your skill, mastering your craft, developing your discipline. That level of focus cannot coexist with the pressure to explain yourself every step of the way. Privacy gives you freedom. It lets you fall and rise again without needing to narrate it. It lets you evolve past the version of yourself that people expect you to be. You can let go of the identity others have assigned to you and build something truer, more resilient, more powerful. You don't owe anyone a play of your progress, especially when that progress is still being shaped. The culture of constant sharing tells us that visibility equals success, that if people don't see it, it doesn't count, that if we're not posting about our wins or talking about our grind, then maybe we're not really moving forward. But that mindset is a trap. It turns the process into performance. It makes us rush to show results before we're ready, and it steals the stillness and patience required to do deep, meaningful work. The most successful people don't broadcast their development, they protect it. They understand that privacy is a boundary that keeps their energy intact. It allows them to control the pace, direction, and quality of their growth without external noise. There is also a sacredness to private growth. The version of you that is becoming something new deserves time to form without commentary. That's the version of you that's doing the internal work, the healing, the learning, the mental rewiring that no one sees but that changes everything. When you choose to grow in private, you choose to respect the process enough to let it unfold without needing to impress anyone along the way. You're not growing for show, you're growing for impact, and that's the kind of growth that lasts. That's the kind that can't be undone by criticism because it wasn't built on validation. It was built on commitment, discipline, and truth. Privacy also helps you reclaim ownership over your journey. When your progress isn't public, you're not influenced by others' timelines, strategies, or opinions. You get to build your own blueprint. You get to listen to your own intuition. You get to move with authenticity, not obligation. That kind of ownership creates a deeper connection to your goals because they're not shaped by who's watching. They're shaped by what matters most to you. And when your goals are rooted in authenticity, the motivation to keep going doesn't burn out. It deepens, it becomes a quiet fire that pushes you through the days when no one is cheering, when no one sees the effort, when no one understands the vision. There's also immense peace in knowing you don't have to perform to prove your worth. You don't have to be constantly explaining, updating, or proving that you're doing enough. You asterisk, no asterisk, you're doing enough. You know you're in motion. You know your time is coming, and that inner knowing becomes your compass. It keeps you grounded when doubt tries to creep in. It keeps you focused when distraction tries to pull you off course. It reminds you that growth isn't always loud. Sometimes the most powerful transformations happen in complete silence. And when it's finally time to reveal what you've built, to share what you've created, to speak about the journey, you'll be doing it from a place of depth, a place of experience, a place of truth. You won't be sharing a half-formed idea or a wish. You'll be revealing a fully realized outcome. One that doesn't just tell people who you are, but asterisk shows asterisk them. One that carries the weight of everything you did in the dark. That's the power of growing in private. You don't have to tell them you've changed. They'll see it. You don't have to convince them you're ready. You'll asterisk be asterisk ready, not because of their approval, but because of your process. So protect your growth, give it room to breathe, let it stretch and struggle and solidify behind closed doors. Let it develop at its own pace. Stop rushing to post the progress and start respecting the process. The more you grow in private, the more powerful your emergence will be. Not because it's loud, but because it's undeniable. Not because you said so, but because your life, your results, your leadership speak louder than words ever could. The strongest trees grow roots long before they break through the ground, and so should you.